Learning to let God in where therapies can go. Welcome back to the ERPAW Podcast, where psychology meets presence, where clinical wisdom meets spiritual depth, and where the God who sees you meets the parts of your story that are still learning how to heal. In our last episode, we talked about something many people quietly experience, the moment when they realize, I've tried everything, I've tried every healing tool I know, and there is still a locked room inside my soul. We talked about how therapy is powerful, medication can be life-changing, mental health tools can help regulate the brain and calm the nervous system, but sometimes there are wounds that go deeper than patterns, wounds that reach identity, meaning, purpose, and those wounds often require something deeper than tools. They require presence. Today we are going to talk about something that can feel both beautiful and uncomfortable. Learning to let God in where the therapists cannot go. The waiting room. Imagine a hospital waiting room. You've probably been in one before. Chairs lined up, soft light, people sitting quietly, some scrolling their phones, some staring at the floor. Everyone is waiting for something. Now, imagine this waiting room represents the human heart. Inside that room sits many helpers, therapists, doctors, mentors, friends, counselors, all of them offering something valuable, support, guidance, understanding, and then imagine someone else quietly enters the room, God. But something interesting happens. People often welcome the helpers but hesitate with Him. Not because they don't believe in God, but because letting God in feels different. It is deeper, more vulnerable. Because when God enters the room, He does not just talk about the wound, He touches it. Now, why letting God in can feel difficult? Why? Let's be honest about something. Many people trust therapists with their pain faster than they trust God. Not because they don't believe in Him, but because pain sometimes creates questions. Questions like, where was God when this happened? If God loves me, why did He allow this? What if I let Him into this part of my story and nothing changes? Those questions are not signs of weak faith. They are signs of a wounded heart trying to understand love again. And God is not intimidated by those questions. He welcomes them. Now, the difference between explanation and redemption. Therapy often helps people explain their pain. It helps them understand patterns. It helps them see connections. And that work is powerful. But there is something therapy cannot do. Therapy can explain what happened, but it cannot redeem what happened. It cannot redeem it. Redemption is different from explanation. Explanation says this is why it happened. Redemption says this will not be the end of your story. That is where God enters the healing process in a unique way. Because God does not only help us understand our story, He helps us rewrite what the story means. The garden of illustration. Imagine two people standing in a garden. The garden once looked beautiful. Flowers, color, life, but a storm passed through. Now parts of the garden are damaged. Broken branches, withered plants, mud everywhere. The first person studies the damage. They analyze the soil, they measure the rainfall, they explain what the storm did. That is important. That is what therapy often helps people do. But the second person begins planting again, watering, restoring, rebuilding the garden. That is what redemption looks like. Not ignoring the storm, but refusing to let the storm have the final word. What letting God in really means. What it really means. Letting God into your healing does not mean ignoring psychology, okay? It does not mean abandoning therapy. It does not mean pretending pain never happens. Letting God in means something much simpler. It means allowing Him to sit with you in parts of your story that still hurt. It means trusting that chapter of your life can still become part of a beautiful story, because God is not afraid of your wounds. He is the restorer of them. Now, the ERPAW vision. At ERPAW Psychiatry and Wellness, we believe deeply in clinical care. Therapy matters, psychiatry matters, medication can be necessary and life-changing, but we also recognize something sacred. True healing often happens when clinical wisdom and spiritual presence work together. When the mind receives support and the soul encounters God. Because healing is not just about reducing symptoms. Healing is about restoring wholeness. Now, take a moment to reflect. So right now, wherever you're listening from, maybe you're driving, walking, cooking, just pause for a moment and ask yourself this gently. Is there a part of my story where I have allowed people to help me understand the pain, but I have not yet allowed God to heal it? Not because you don't believe in Him, but because that part of your heart is still very tender. It still feels unsure. It still feels afraid to trust again. If that is you, you are not alone. And God is patient. He waits at the door of this room with incredible gentleness. This brings us to another important discovery. Many people finally decide to let God into their healing journey, and yet something surprising happens. They still struggle to feel peace constantly. Why? Because healing with God is not just about moments of prayer. It is about something deeper, something Jesus called abiding. In the next episode, we are going to talk about abiding, the healing routine that does not train but transforms. Why sitting with God consistently can calm the nervous system, restore the soul, and sustain healing in ways that many people can never expect. Because the goal of healing was never just to survive your story. The goal was to become whole within it. And sometimes that wholeness begins with one simple decision: to remain, to rest, to abide. If you love content like this, do not forget to follow us. Leave a comment, share your thoughts. We'd like to hear from you as well.